A man returns to the small town where he abandoned his daughter after his wife's death. He believes he will find a well-cared-for child, but discovers a girl marked by neglect and fear. Faced with the brutal truth, he realizes that no amount of money can mend the lost years. Now he will face everything, even the law, to win back the love of the daughter he almost lost forever. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. Let's continue. I promise this will be the best story you will ever hear. The private jet sliced through the blue sky of the Virginia Highlands as Augustus Miller observed the mountainous landscape through the window. At 45 years old, the mining industry magnate had built an empire that placed him among the wealthiest men in the United States. His businesses spread from Richmond to the world, but there was an emptiness no financial achievement could fill. In the pocket of his impeccable Italian suit, he carried a yellowed photograph, a 5-year-old girl with deep brown eyes and a shy smile. Sophia, his daughter, now 11, whom he hadn't seen since the tragic accident that took Eliza, his wife. At the time, shattered by the loss and unable to cope with parenthood alone, Augustus had accepted the offer of Beatrice, Eliza's second cousin, to care for the girl in Colonial Creek, a small historic town where the maternal family had roots. "We are beginning our descent to Jamestown Airport." "Sir?" the pilot informed over the intercom, interrupting his thoughts. Augustus adjusted his watch. Sophia's birthday was 4 hours away. He had planned everything. Expensive gifts, a surprise party, perhaps even the proposal to bring her to live in his mansion in Richmond. Guilt had consumed him for years, intensified by Beatrice's monthly reports, always formal and distant, which he quickly read between meetings. The rented luxury car wound through the cobblestone streets of Colonial Creek. The driver, an older gentleman familiar with the region, broke the silence. "Have you come to see our historic churches, sir?" "No, I've come to visit my daughter. She lives with a relative on Blossom Lane." "Ah, I know it well. House with high walls, isn't it? Mrs. Beatrice's place?" Augustus nodded, surprised. "Small town, everyone knows everyone," the driver explained. "Is your daughter that little girl who hardly ever leaves the house? Always helping with chores?" Something in the man's tone bothered Augustus. "What do you mean, helping with chores?" The driver hesitated. "Well, you know, children need to learn responsibility." Before Augustus could question him further, they arrived at their destination. The colonial house with high walls and an iron gate had an imposing appearance, but something in the poorly maintained garden and broken roof tiles indicated neglect. Augustus dismissed the driver and took a deep breath before ringing the doorbell. No one answered. After several attempts, he decided to walk around the property, following a stone path to the back. What he saw paralyzed him. In the muddy backyard, slick from recent rain, a thin, pale girl wearing shabby clothes carried heavy buckets towards a small pigsty where 2 pigs grunted. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her slender arms trembled with the effort. "Sophia!" Augustus's voice came out as a strangled whisper. The girl turned, startled, spilling muddy water on her bare feet. Her eyes, identical to those in the photo, widened. There was no immediate recognition, only fear. "Who are you, sir?" she asked, backing away. The question was like a stab. His own daughter didn't recognize him. "It's me, Sophia, your father." The girl frowned, confused, as if trying to fit an adult face into the childhood memory she held. Augustus took a step towards her, but she instinctively recoiled. "Sophia! Who's there?" A shrill voice cut through the air. Beatrice appeared at the back door, a woman in her 50s with dyed hair and a rigid posture. Her face transformed when she saw Augustus. "Augustus, what are you doing here? We didn't receive notification of your visit." "Notification? Do I need permission to see my daughter?" Anger began to replace the shock. Beatrice approached, trying to position herself between him and Sophia. "Of course not, but we usually maintain a routine. Sophia has duties." "Duties? She's feeding pigs, barefoot covered in mud." "They're household chores," Beatrice smiled nervously. "Important for character building. The education Eliza would have wanted her to have." Upon hearing her mother's name, Sophia looked up, revealing deep, dark circles under her young eyes. "Go wash up, Sophia," Beatrice ordered. "Your father has come to visit." What a pleasant surprise. The girl obeyed promptly, like a soldier following orders. Augustus noticed calluses on her small hands as she dropped the buckets. "What is going on here, Beatrice?" Augustus kept his voice low, containing the fury that consumed him. "Come inside. We can talk civilly." The living room of the house contrasted with the decadent exterior, well-preserved antique furniture, porcelains in display cabinets, Persian rugs. Sophia reappeared minutes later, still in the same shabby dress but with her face and hands washed. She sat rigidly in a distant chair, eyes downcast. "Sophia, your father came for your birthday. Isn't that wonderful?" Beatrice's voice sounded artificially sweet. The girl nodded mechanically, without emotion. Augustus felt a lump in his throat. "I brought you presents," he said, extending colourful packages he carried in his bag. Sophia looked at Beatrice, as if asking permission. "You may take them," the woman authorized. Carefully, almost reverently, Sophia opened the wrappers. Books, an expensive doll, a latest model tablet. Her expression remained blank, as if she didn't know what to do with those objects. "Thank you, sir," she murmured. "You can call me Dad," Augustus corrected gently. "Thank you." "Dad," she repeated emotionlessly. The lunch that followed was a grotesque charade of normalcy. Beatrice talked incessantly about Sophia's supposed progress in the local school, her piano lessons, her imaginary friends. The girl remained silent, eating little, answering only when directly questioned. When Sophia was sent to study in her room, Augustus confronted Beatrice. "What kind of life have you given my daughter?" "A disciplined life," she replied defensively. "The money you send monthly has ensured education, health, a roof over her head. She needs to learn the value of work. She's 11 years old. I saw how she looks at me, with fear. What have you been doing to my daughter? Are you questioning my methods after 6 years of absence? You abandoned her here." The words hit Augustus like a slap. It was true. He had abandoned her, sending money to appease his conscience, believing the superficial reports, never checking in person. "I want to see her room," he demanded. "You're disrupting the girl's routine," Beatrice protested. "She needs to study." Ignoring her, Augustus went upstairs, opening doors until he found Sophia. The sight froze his blood. The room was an adapted attic with a simple bed, no child's decorations. The girl was sitting on the cold floor, writing in a worn notebook. "Sophia," he called softly. She stood up immediately, tense. "Are you all right here?" he asked, knowing the true answer wouldn't come while Beatrice could hear. "Yes." "Sir, Dad," she quickly corrected herself. Augustus noticed purple bruises on her thin arms that she tried to hide by pulling down her sleeves. He took a deep breath, containing his rage. "I'll be staying in town for a few days," he said, looking into her eyes. "I'll be back tomorrow." Something flickered in Sophia's gaze, a spark of hope so faint it almost went unnoticed. Augustus felt his heart break. He left the house with the determination of a man on a mission. At the hotel, he spent the entire night researching on his laptop, taking furious notes, making calls. By the time the sun rose, he already had a plan. Sophia would not spend another day in that hell disguised as a home. The sun had not yet risen when Augustus woke up in the small Colonial Creek Hotel. In fact, he had barely slept, tormented by images of Sophia, her empty eyes, the bruises on her arms, the fear in every gesture. During the night, he had obsessively researched child rights, child protective services, and guardianship transfer processes. As a man accustomed to solving problems with money and influence, he felt helpless before the bureaucracy of the system. After an untouched breakfast, he drove to Jamestown, a larger nearby city. The GPS guided him to an old restored building in the downtown area, where the office of the lawyer his contact in Richmond had urgently recommended was located. Camilla Reed, a family law specialist. The waiting room contrasted with the luxurious offices he was accustomed to. Exposed stone walls, simple but elegant furniture, organized toys in a corner. A young secretary greeted him. "Mr. Miller, Ms. Reed is waiting." Camilla Reed was 40 years old, with curly hair pulled back in a professional bun and keen eyes behind thick-rimmed glasses. Her handshake was firm, her gaze assessing. "My colleague in Richmond gave me a brief overview of your situation," she said, indicating the chair in front of her. "But I need to hear all the details directly from you." For the next hour, Augustus recounted everything. Eliza's loss, the decision to leave Sophia with Beatrice, The years of absence, the visit the day before. With each word, he felt the weight of his own negligence. The lawyer listened with clinical attention, making occasional notes without apparent judgment. "Mr. Miller," she finally spoke, "I'll be direct. You are in a legally complicated position." "Why? I'm the biological father." "Yes, but you formally agreed to Beatrice Albright's guardianship 6 years ago. During that period, your visits were practically non-existent, as you yourself admit. In the eyes of the law, this can be interpreted as abandonment." The words hit Augustus like a punch to the stomach. "But I sent money monthly." "Generously?" "Providing financially and exercising parenthood are distinct things in the eyes of justice," Camilla explained, without softening the reality. "However," she continued, "if what you witnessed constitutes neglect or abuse, we have grounds for immediate action. We need proof." "What kind of proof?" "Documentation of the conditions in which you found your daughter. Witnesses who can attest to mistreatment. Medical reports confirming neglect. School records indicating problems." Augustus ran his hands over his face, feeling the fatigue of the sleepless night. "How do we start?" "First, a formal complaint to Child Protective Services. Second, we need to document everything. Photograph the environment where Sophia lives, record your interactions, seek out neighbors or teachers who may have observed something. Third, if possible, an independent medical examination. And in the meantime, she stays there." "In that situation?" Camilla sighed, understanding his anguish. "Unfortunately, legal processes take time. Removing a child from their residence without a court order can complicate your case." "Can't I just take her with me?" "I'm her father." "Legally, no. The guardian has official custody. Any hasty action could be interpreted as illegal interference with guardianship." Augustus stood up, pacing restlessly around the room. "What if she's in immediate danger?" "In that case, Child Protective Services can intervene quickly. That's why we need concrete evidence, Mr. Miller." After more detailed guidance, Augustus left the office with a structured plan. First, visit the local Child Protective Services. Then return to Beatrice's house under the pretext of spending more time with Sophia, discreetly documenting everything he could. Child Protective Services operated in a modest building near the Colonial Creek Town Hall. There, Augustus met Marcia Olson, a middle-aged CPS officer with a maternal expression and experienced eyes. "I understand your concern, Mr. Miller," she said after hearing his account. "But we need to follow protocols. We will make a visit to the residence for a preliminary assessment." "When?" "We cannot inform you of the exact date. Surprise visits are more effective for assessing the real situation." "What if something happens to my daughter while we wait?" Marcia looked at him seriously. "You have my number. For any emergency, contact me immediately." Frustrated with the bureaucratic slowness but determined, Augustus moved on to his next objective, documenting everything. He bought a discreet camera with a powerful zoom and returned to the vicinity of Beatrice's house. From a cafe with a partial view of the backyard, he photographed Sophia hanging heavy clothes under the strong sun, carrying buckets cleaning the outdoor area. Through the lens, he noticed details that had escaped him the day before: her extreme thinness, the hunched posture of someone carrying too much weight, the constantly vigilant gaze. As he prepared to leave, he was approached by an elderly woman with white hair and an upright posture, who had discreetly sat at the next table. "You're the girl's father, aren't you?" she asked in a low voice. Augustus tensed. "How do you know?" "I'm Francis Meadows. I live in the yellow house next door to Beatrice." She nodded towards a nearby colonial building. "I saw you yesterday, and the resemblance to the girl is unmistakable." Augustus studied the elderly woman cautiously. "Do you know my daughter?" "I know enough to know that house is no place for a child." Mrs. Meadows leaned closer, lowering her voice even further. "I've been watching for years. At first, I thought they were just strict rules of education. Then," she shook her head, leaving the sentence incomplete. "Why didn't you ever report it?" A look of guilt crossed her wrinkled face. "I tried once. Beatrice has influence in town. She's the former mayor's niece. The complaint was dismissed as a misunderstanding." Augustus felt his anger rise again. "What else can you tell me? Come to my house tomorrow. When Beatrice takes Sophia to church, I have something to show you." That afternoon, Augustus returned to Beatrice's house, announcing that he would spend the rest of the day with Sophia to make up for lost time. The guardian hesitated, but the amount he discreetly slipped her way, for extra expenses, he justified, seemed to soften her objections. "Sophia has chores to do," Beatrice insisted. "I'm sure a day off won't harm her." "A development," he retorted, barely containing his sarcasm. Sophia appeared wearing what was clearly her best clothes, a simple dress, faded from many washes, but clean. Her hair was combed and tied with a ribbon, but nothing disguised her pallor or frightened eyes. "Shall we go to the park?" Augustus invited. The question sounded strange even to him, a father asking his own daughter if they could go to the park, as if they were strangers on a first date. Sophia looked at Beatrice, seeking approval. "Go," the guardian authorized. "Be back before 6. She needs to help with dinner." Walking through the historic town, Augustus desperately tried to establish a connection with his daughter. Sophia responded politely, but with short, rehearsed phrases. At the park, they sat on a secluded bench. "Sophia," he began gently, "are you happy living with Aunt Beatrice?" The girl tensed immediately. "Aunt Beatrice takes good care of me." "That's not what I asked, dear. I asked if you're happy." Sophia looked around as if checking if they were truly alone. "She said I shouldn't complain, that I should be grateful for a roof and food." "She?" "Aunt Beatrice doesn't like me to call her aunt. She says we're not really related." Augustus took a deep breath. "Sophia, if something is wrong, you can tell me. I'm your father. I'm here to protect you." The girl's eyes filled with tears that she quickly held back as if crying was forbidden. "You're going to leave again." The simple sentence shattered what was left of Augustus's heart. "No, Sophia, I'm not leaving. I came to stay with you." She looked at him with distrust learned the hard way. "Everyone says things and then—" Her voice trailed off. Augustus risked holding her small, calloused hand. She didn't pull back, but she also didn't return the gesture. "I promise this time it's different," he said, feeling the weight of each word. "I will fix my mistakes." At the ice cream parlor, Augustus watched Sophia devour her ice cream with barely disguised eagerness, like someone who rarely had access to such luxuries. Between careful questions, he discovered fragments of his daughter's routine: waking up at 5 to prepare Beatrice's coffee, cleaning the entire house before school, cooking, washing, ironing, feeding the animals, studying at night when she was already exhausted. When they returned home, Beatrice awaited them on the porch like a sentinel. 6:10, she observed, ostentatiously consulting her watch. "I take responsibility for the delay," Augustus replied. "Tomorrow I'll be back so we can continue our outing." "Tomorrow we have Mass and then commitments," Beatrice cut in. "Perhaps next week." "I'll be here at 2 after Mass," he insisted in a tone that allowed no dispute. A businessman accustomed to commanding, he now used that natural authority against the guardian. Sophia needs to get to know her father. When Sophia went inside, Beatrice grabbed Augustus's arm with surprising force. "Don't get the girls' hopes up," she hissed. "We know your visit is temporary. Your empire doesn't run itself, does it? And Sophia has a structured life here." Augustus removed her hand firmly. "A life of servitude, you mean? I prefer to call it preparation for the real world, a world that has no place for spoiled princesses. We'll see what the judge thinks of your educational methodology." Beatrice's eyes narrowed. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising," he replied, turning his back and leaving before his anger fully exploded. At the hotel, Augustus reviewed the photos taken during the day, catalogued his observations, and sent everything to Camilla Reed. The message he received back was direct. "Promising evidence, but we need more. Keep documenting. I'm preparing the initial petition, but a medical report would greatly strengthen our case." Lying in bed, Augustus couldn't close his eyes. Every time he tried, he saw Sophia carrying heavy buckets, Sophia checking if Beatrice was watching her before answering any question, Sophia devouring a simple ice cream as if it were a feast. His daughter lived like a servant in the house that should be her home, while he, hundreds of miles away, accumulated fortunes. His cell phone rang at 11:42 p.m. It was Mrs. Meadows. "Mr. Miller," her voice trembled, "I just saw something you need to know. The girl is being punished for being late today. She's outside in the rain that started, washing the yard." Augustus jumped up. "I'm coming. No!" The elderly woman's voice was urgent. "Beatrice will know I told you. Come tomorrow as we arranged. I have more concrete evidence to show you." Evidence no judge can ignore. Reluctantly, Augustus agreed. The storm raging outside was the perfect prelude to the tempest forming in his heart. A mixture of guilt, anger, and determination that would not subside until Sophia was safe in his arms. The rain had stopped when Augustus left the hotel the next morning. The cobblestone streets of Colonial Creek gleamed wet, reflecting the brightening sky. The colonial town slowly awoke, merchants opening their doors, more devout worshippers heading to the main church for early mass. As arranged, Augustus waited in a cafe with a view of the church. Precisely at 8:30 a.m., he saw Beatrice and Sophia leave the house and walk towards the temple. Sophia wore a discreet light blue dress and carried a worn Bible. From a distance, they might have looked like just an aunt and niece going to Sunday Mass, a common sight in rural Virginia. Only Augustus's keen eyes noticed how Sophia maintained a regulated distance from Beatrice, how her tense body seemed ready to flinch at any sudden movement. When the two entered the church, Augustus quickly made his way to the yellow house next to Beatrice's property. Mrs. Meadows was already waiting for him at the gate. "Good morning, Mr. Miller. We have little time. Father Anthony's Mass never lasts more than an hour." The elderly woman's house was the opposite of Beatrice's, smaller, simpler, but welcoming. Family photos adorned the walls, plants bloomed in colorful pots, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air. "This way," she indicated, leading him to a small living room. In the corner, a desk held a monitor connected to a computer that seemed out of place in the traditional setting. "My grandson installed security cameras for me 2 years ago," she explained, sitting down in front of the monitor. "I'm a widow and live alone," he worries. "The system records everything that happens on the street and part of the front yard. And also," she hesitated, "part of Beatrice's side yard." Augustus sat beside her, tense. "And what did these cameras record? First, I need you to understand something." Mrs. Meadows turned to face him, her eyes tired but firm. "I'm a retired teacher. I worked with children for 40 years. I know when something is wrong, but I also know the limits of my intervention. Why couldn't you help my daughter before?" The woman sighed. "I tried, believe me. I made anonymous complaints that were dismissed. I offered Sophia help when I found her, but she always said she was fine, clearly terrified. Beatrice has influence here. A traditional family, relatives in local politics. No one wanted to confront her, but now you're willing to help me. Because you're the father. You have legitimacy that I don't." She turned to the computer. "What I'm about to show you isn't easy to watch." In videos dated from recent weeks, Augustus saw scenes that made his stomach churn. Sophia sweeping the sidewalk in heavy rain, carrying trash bags almost larger than herself, being verbally reprimanded with violence when a vase accidentally broke. In one particularly disturbing sequence, Beatrice dragged Sophia by the arm after the girl apparently took too long to return from an errand. "My God," Augustus murmured, running his hands over his face. "How did I let this happen?" "There's more," Mrs. Meadows said gravely. "Look at this recording from last night after you returned from your outing." The night video showed Sophia in the backyard, under heavy rain, scrubbing the stone patio with a brush, while Beatrice watched from the covered porch, drinking what appeared to be wine. The scene lasted almost half an hour until the girl, soaked and visibly trembling even in the low-quality recording, was finally allowed inside. That was the punishment for being 10 minutes late, Mrs. Meadows explained. Augustus felt bile rise in his throat. "I need copies of all of this. I've already prepared them." She handed him a USB drive. "It's all here with dates and times. And there's one more thing." The elderly woman stood up with some difficulty and went to a drawer, from which she pulled out a simple blue-covered school notebook. "I found this in my garden 3 weeks ago. Sophia must have thrown it out the window during one of the punishments. It's a kind of diary." Augustus took the notebook with trembling hands. On the first pages, in careful childish handwriting, were simple daily accounts. As he progressed, however, the content became darker. "Today I couldn't finish cleaning the bathroom before she came back. I didn't get dinner. She said I'm ungrateful. That I should be thankful I'm not in an orphanage. That Daddy didn't want me. I broke a plate today." She got very angry. "I slept in the laundry room. I'm hungry. There was only a little rice left for my dinner." The last entry was from just a week ago. "I turned 11 today. No one remembered. I dreamed Mom was alive and Dad came to get us. Augustus closed the notebook, unable to continue. Guilt suffocated him. Can I keep this? That's why I showed it to you, Mrs. Meadows assented. Use it to save that girl. The sound of the church bell announcing the end of Mass interrupted the conversation. Go, the woman urged him. I'll be available to testify when necessary. Augustus carefully put away the USB drive and the diary and left through the back of the house to avoid being seen. Instead of returning directly to the hotel, he drove to the small public school where, according to his research, Sophia studied. Despite it being Sunday, there was activity in the Simple building, a science fair being prepared for the following week. Augustus identified himself at the secretary's office as Sophia Miller's father and asked to speak with his daughter's teacher. Louisa Taylor, the employee informed, consulting a record. She's in room 8 preparing projects. Ms. Louisa Taylor, a young woman in her 30s, was arranging posters when Augustus knocked on the door. Can I help you? She asked, adjusting her colorful framed glasses. I'm Augustus Miller, Sophia's father. The teacher's face showed immediate surprise, followed by what seemed like relief. Mr. Miller, how good to finally meet you. Sophia mentioned you were in town. She mentioned my visit? Briefly. Sophia speaks very little, actually. Louisa indicated a chair. Please sit down. I imagine you want to know about her school performance. Actually, I want to know about everything, Augustus said, sitting down. How she's doing at school, if she has friends, if she well. Louisa hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Sophia is extremely intelligent. Her grades are exemplary, especially in English and math. But socially. The teacher paused. She doesn't interact much with the other children. She always seems tired, often dozes off during classes. She brings inadequate snacks when she brings any. She's absent frequently, always with justifications of household chores. And the school never questioned these absences. We did. Mrs. Albright always has convincing explanations, and Sophia never contradicts her guardian. But you suspected something was wrong, Augustus deduced. Louisa took a deep breath. As a teacher, I am legally obligated to report any suspicion of abuse. I did so twice in the last 3 years. And what happened? Scheduled visits from Child Protective Services that resulted in nothing. Mrs. Albright is very prepared. The house is impeccable. Sophia appears well-dressed and instructed to say everything is fine, but you didn't believe it. I know my children. Mr. Miller, I know when they are suffering, even if they can't or don't know how to express it. Louisa opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I have documented everything. Days Sophia arrived with bruises, days without snacks, school assignments with recurring themes of abandonment, worrying drawings. Augustus examined the folder, feeling simultaneously grateful for the teacher's dedication and devastated by the accumulating evidence of suffering. Why are you showing me this now? Because you are here, Louisa replied simply. Because Sophia smiled for the first time in years when she said she had seen her father. It was a small, frightened smile, but real. And because, she hesitated, I received a call from Camilla Reed last night. Augustus raised his eyebrows, surprised. We've been friends since college, Louisa explained. When she told me about your case, I realized we finally had a real chance to help Sophia. Would you testify? Absolutely. And I can provide copies of all this. She indicated the folder. There's something else you should see. Louisa pulled out a crayon drawing. It showed 3 figures, a dark-haired woman with angel wings, a man in a suit next to a large building, and a small girl behind bars that looked like a cage. Sophia drew this 2 months ago, when I asked them to represent family, Louisa explained. The previous teacher warned me about her drawings, so I started keeping them. Augustus observed the angelic figure representing Eliza, and the representation of himself, distant, next to what was presumably his business empire. Sophia trapped in a cage. The message was too clear to be ignored. There's something else, Louisa said, hesitant. Something that happened on Friday before your arrival. Sophia fainted during physical education. Nothing serious, apparently. The nurse attributed it to inadequate nutrition. But when we examined her, she paused. There were marks on her back. Belt marks. Augustus felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Did you report it? Immediately. Child Protective Services scheduled a visit for tomorrow. Tomorrow. Augustus stood up. We need action now, today! I completely agree, Louisa said, but we have to follow legal protocols. Or Beatrice could overturn any judicial decision by alleging procedural irregularities. Frustrated but understanding the argument, Augustus organized with Louisa the strategy for the next day. She would be present during the Child Protective Services visit, as would Mrs. Meadows. Camilla Reed had already been notified and was preparing the necessary documentation. As he left the school, Augustus received a message from Mrs. Meadows. They're back from Mass. Beatrice left again alone, probably for Sunday lunch at her sister's house. Sophia stayed. She seems to be cleaning. A new message arrived soon after. The girl seems feverish. She's coughing. Consequence of last night's rain, I imagine. Augustus felt his blood boil. Sophia was sick, alone still, being forced to work after spending the previous night in the rain as punishment. The idea of waiting until the next day, following protocols and procedures while his daughter suffered, became unbearable. Driving back to the historic center, he stopped the car a safe distance from Beatrice's house. A decision was forming in his mind, a decision that could complicate the legal process, but which his paternal instinct, finally awakened after years of dormancy, demanded he make. Sophia would not spend another night in that house. No matter the consequences, Augustus Miller, who had built an empire by following rules and procedures, was about to break them all for the most precious thing he had ever possessed, the daughter he had neglected for so long. Augustus's impulse was interrupted by his cell phone ringing. It was Camilla Reed. "Mr. Miller, where are you?" "Near Beatrice's house. My daughter is there, sick, alone, being forced to work after spending the night in the rain." Anger permeated every word. "I understand your indignation," Camilla replied in a calm but firm voice, "but I need you to listen carefully. I managed to move up the Child Protective Services visit to today. Officer Marcia is on her way, along with a doctor from the local health clinic. They will arrive in approximately 20 minutes. Augustus took a deep breath, trying to control the urge to storm the house. "I'll be there. No, Mr. Miller, your presence during the initial inspection could be counterproductive. Beatrice could claim harassment or coercion. Let the professionals do their job first. What if she prevents them from entering? What if she prepares Sophia to lie again? Beatrice is not home right now, correct? And Child Protective Services visits do not require prior authorization in cases of reported risk. They have the authority to enter and assess." Reluctantly, Augustus agreed to wait at the hotel. He hung up the phone with the feeling of abandoning Sophia once again, even knowing that the legal strategy was necessary. At the hotel, the minutes dragged on like hours. Augustus paced back and forth, compulsively checking his phone. After what seemed like an eternity, he received a message from Camilla. "Inspection completed. Come to Child Protective Services now." In the small municipal building, he found Marcia Olson with a grave expression, accompanied by a middle-aged man who introduced himself as Dr. Paul Rivers. "Mr. Miller," Marcia began, "we made an unannounced visit to Mrs. Albright's residence. As she was not present, we were received by Sophia, who initially hesitated to let us in, stating that she wasn't allowed to have visitors. We explained our role and authority," she continued, "and conducted a complete inspection of the property. The conditions are concerning." "Concerning?" Augustus couldn't contain his sarcasm. "Legally, I need to be precise in my assessment," Marcia explained patiently. "We documented a pattern consistent with neglect and possible mistreatment." "Possible?" Dr. Rivers intervened. "I performed a preliminary examination on Sophia with her consent. The girl shows signs of mild to moderate malnutrition, dehydration, and multiple bruises in different stages of healing on her back, arms and legs. Furthermore," he added, "she has a respiratory infection, likely the result of recent exposure to the elements. We prescribed medication and recommended follow-up." "And she's still there?" Augustus's voice rose. "With all this you've proven, my daughter is still in that house." Marcia sighed. "I understand your frustration, Mr. Miller, but there are procedures. We cannot simply remove a child without a court order, except in cases of imminent danger." "And this isn't imminent danger. Mrs. Albright returned during our visit," Marcia explained. She was informed of the findings and the necessary medical treatments. She committed to following all recommendations and is aware that she will be under constant monitoring. Augustus ran his hands over his face, incredulous. So she abuses my daughter for years. You finally prove it. And the solution is to give her a slap on the wrist and say, "Don't do that anymore." "Mr. Miller," Camilla interjected, who had remained silent until then, "we are building a strong case. Dr. Rivers will prepare a detailed medical report. Officer Marcia will produce an official report. And tomorrow we will file an urgent protective order request with the Juvenile and Family Court." "Tomorrow," Augustus repeated, the words sounding like a sentence. "And tonight? What prevents Beatrice from punishing Sophia for letting us in? For allowing the medical examination?" "I explicitly informed Mrs. Albright that any retaliation will result in immediate removal of the child," Marcia stated. "Additionally, I scheduled a surprise visit for early tomorrow, even before the hearing." Augustus knew there was nothing more he could do at that moment. Legally, his hands were tied. He thanked the doctor and the officer and left with Camilla to discuss the next steps. "I want to try to visit her now," he said, already in the car. "See how she's being treated after the inspection." "It's your right as a father," Camilla agreed. "But stay calm. Any confrontation now could harm our case tomorrow." At the Colonial House, Beatrice received them with studied coldness. The woman had clearly adjusted her strategy after the Child Protective Services visit. "Sophia is resting as medically advised," she informed. "She cannot receive visitors now." "I'm her father," Augustus replied, containing his anger. "I have a right to see her." "You apparently forgot that right for 6 years," Beatrice retorted with a bitter smile. "But if you insist, 5 minutes only. She needs rest." The room, the same adapted attic he had seen before, now had a portable heater on and a few more blankets on the simple bed. Sophia was lying down, pale, with deep dark circles contrasting with her white skin. A tray with a glass of water and medications rested beside her. "Dad?" she murmured, surprised by the visit. "Hi, dear." Augustus sat carefully on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Better," she replied automatically, like someone instructed on what to say. Her gaze, however, said something else. There was fear there, and a silent plea. "The doctor said you need to take your medicine properly and rest," he said, noticing that Beatrice remained at the door, watching. Sophia nodded, coughing lightly. "She's taking care of me," she said, looking quickly at Beatrice. Augustus perceived the dynamic. His daughter was acting, saying what she knew she should say under surveillance. He felt his heart clench. "I'll come back tomorrow to see how you are," he promised, holding her small, feverish hand. "Rest, okay?" As they left, Augustus noticed that Beatrice locked the bedroom door. The sound of the key turning in the lock echoed like a gunshot in his chest. "Preventive measure," she justified, noticing his gaze. "With a fever, she could get up disoriented and fall down the stairs. Or she could try to escape," Augustus suggested, unable to restrain himself. Beatrice's eyes hardened. "You are exceeding your limits, Mr. Miller. Legally, I am still Sophia's responsible guardian." "For now," he replied, holding her gaze. Outside in the car, Camilla tried to calm him. That was a play put on for Child Protective Services. The heater, the medications, all hastily arranged to appear caring. "And the padlock? Is that also a preventive measure?" "I photographed it," Camilla replied. "More evidence for our case tomorrow." Augustus dropped the lawyer off at her office and returned to the hotel, feeling defeated and powerless. How could he sleep knowing Sophia was locked in that attic, sick, possibly terrified? He decided he couldn't just wait. He went back to his car and parked a discreet distance from Beatrice's house, determined to keep watch through the night. Around 10 p.m., he received a message from Mrs. Meadows. "The living room lights are still on. Beatrice seems to be making calls. She's agitated." An hour later, a new message. A car just left the garage. "Beatrice is going out." Augustus straightened up, alert. It was unusual for someone to leave so late in a small town like Colonial Creek. Even more unusual to leave a sick child alone. He waited a few minutes to be sure Beatrice had really left and approached the house. From the outside, everything seemed quiet. The lights on the upper floor where the attic was were off. Augustus walked around, looking for a way to check if Sophia was okay. It was then that he noticed a disturbing detail. The external staircase leading to the small backyard was covered by a plastic tarp. The rain had stopped hours ago. There was no need for that. Intrigued, he approached and lifted the tarp. What he saw chilled his blood. Sophia was there, asleep or unconscious, wearing only a thin nightgown lying on the stone steps. Beside her, a bucket of water and a brush clearly indicated the work she was supposed to be doing, even while sick. Augustus ran to her, touching her face. It was burning with fever. "Sophia," he called softly, feeling panic rise. "Sophia, wake up!" The girl slowly opened her eyes, disoriented. "Dad?" she murmured, her voice hoarse. She said I needed to finish. Before she came back, she coughed violently. Without thinking twice, Augustus picked her up in his arms. Sophia was so light he barely felt her weight. An 11-year-old child who weighed like a 6-year-old. Her body trembled with fever and cold. "I'm taking you out of here," he said, determined. "Now." "But she—" Sophia tried to weakly protest. "She'll never hurt you again," Augustus promised, carrying her to the car. In the vehicle, he wrapped her in his jacket. Sophia coughed continuously, her labored breathing worrying him even more. "I'm taking you to the hospital," he said, starting the car. "No," Sophia pleaded, clutching his shirt sleeve with surprising strength. "She'll find me there. She always says if I tell anyone, she'll send me to a worse place." The fear in his daughter's eyes was so genuine that Augustus reconsidered. A public hospital would mean records, questions, possible contact with Beatrice as legal guardian. He needed a doctor, but also discretion. He grabbed his phone and called Dr. Rivers, explaining the situation. The doctor, after initial hesitation, agreed to meet them at his private practice. "What you did is technically illegal," the doctor warned as he examined Sophia. "Removing a child from legal custody without judicial authorization—" "Look at her," Augustus interrupted. "I found her lying on an outdoor staircase with a high fever, being forced to clean the yard." "That's attempted murder," the doctor sighed, applying the stethoscope. "Early pneumonia," he diagnosed. "She'll need intravenous antibiotics and monitoring. She should be hospitalized. I can't take her to a hospital now. Beatrice has local influence. She could force her return." Dr. Rivers considered the situation, looking at the girl trembling on the examination table. "I have a recovery room here in the office for minor procedures. I can keep her under observation overnight and administer the medications. I'll do anything, pay any amount," Augustus assured him. "It's not about money," the doctor replied. "It's about doing right by this child." While Sophia received treatment, Augustus called Camilla, reporting the events. The lawyer remained silent for a few seconds. "Mr. Miller, I completely understand why you did this, but legally—" "She would have died, Ms. Reed," he interrupted. "Sick with a high fever, left outside to finish cleaning." "I understand. And now we have more concrete proof of Beatrice's criminal negligence. I will document everything, Dr. Rivers' testimony, the condition in which you found Sophia. But we need to act fast. As soon as Beatrice discovers Sophia is not there, she will file a police report for kidnapping." "Kidnapping? I'm her father." "Without legal custody, technically, yes. Our hearing is scheduled for tomorrow at 1 p.m. Can you keep Sophia hidden until then?" Augustus looked at his daughter, who was finally sleeping under the effect of the medication, her breathing still difficult, but better than before. "Yes, I won't leave her." After hanging up, he sat beside the makeshift bed, holding Sophia's small, fragile hand. How had he allowed this to happen? How could he have abandoned his own daughter, delegating her upbringing to a woman he barely knew, just to avoid facing the pain of Eliza's loss? Dr. Rivers returned, checking Sophia's vital signs. "The fever is breaking. The antibiotics are working. Will she be okay?" Augustus asked, his voice choked. "Physically, yes. With proper treatment, the pneumonia should fully resolve." The doctor paused. "But the psychological trauma, that will take longer." "Much longer." Augustus nodded, understanding the extent of the damage his negligence had caused. "I'll make it up to her," he promised, more to himself than to the doctor. "I'll dedicate my life to it." During the early hours of the morning, while Sophia slept, Augustus received several messages from Mrs. Meadows. Beatrice had returned, discovered Sophia's absence, and panicked. She had alerted the local police, reporting the kidnapping of the girl under her care. "Detective Inspector Mason is at her house now," the elderly woman informed. They're organizing searches. Augustus showed the messages to Dr. Rivers. I need to get her out of here. Your office will be one of the first places they check. The doctor agreed. There's a hotel on the outskirts of town, discreet, frequented mainly by business travelers. The owner is my brother-in-law. I can arrange a room without formal identification. Before dawn, Augustus transferred Sophia, still weak but conscious, to the indicated hotel. The simple clean room would be their temporary refuge until the hearing. Where are we? Sophia asked, sitting up in bed with difficulty. In a safe place, Augustus replied. No one will hurt you here. She'll find me, Sophia said, fear evident in her voice. She always says she'll find me no matter where I hide. Not this time, Augustus assured her, sitting beside her. She'll never get near you again. I promise. Sophia looked at him with eyes that had seen too much for her age. Are you going to leave again? The simple question cut Augustus deeper than any blade. No, Sophia. I will never leave you again. I am your father, and it took me too long to understand what that truly means. The girl didn't respond, but she also didn't pull away when he gently held her hand. It was a tenuous beginning, fragile like the trust he was trying to rebuild. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise over the Virginia Highlands Mountains. In a few hours, they would face justice. A powerful businessman who had neglected his daughter for 6 years, now technically a criminal for having kidnapped her to save her. The irony did not escape Augustus. But looking at Sophia, who finally slept with a serene expression, free from constant fear for the first time in years, he knew he would do it all again, without hesitation. Some rules needed to be broken, when what was at stake was far more precious than any fortune or reputation. The sun was already high when Sophia woke up again. For a moment, panic took over her eyes. An unfamiliar environment, the absence of the rigid routine imposed by Beatrice. Then she saw Augustus asleep in the armchair beside the bed, and something in her gaze changed. Dad, she called softly, her voice still hoarse. Augustus woke immediately. Good morning. How are you feeling? Better. She tried to sit up, and he hurried to help her. It wasn't a dream, then? No, it wasn't. Augustus smiled, checking her temperature with the back of his hand. The fever had significantly decreased. Are you hungry? I ordered breakfast for us. Sophia looked at the tray on the table with toast, fruit, cornbread, and hot chocolate, as if it were an impossible treasure. Can I really eat all this? The innocent question was like a dagger. Of course you can, dear. Anything you want. While Sophia ate cautiously, accustomed to controlled portions, Augustus checked his phone. There were several messages from Camilla, Mrs. Meadows, and Dr. Rivers. The situation had escalated quickly. Beatrice had filed a formal police report for kidnapping. Local police were conducting searches. An alert had been issued with descriptions of Augustus and Sophia. We have a hearing today, Augustus explained gently, with a judge who will decide who you'll live with from now on. Sophia stopped eating, tense. Will I have to see her again? Probably yes at the hearing, but you won't be alone with her ever again. I promise. The girl nodded, but worry remained on her face. She'll say I lied, that I'm ungrateful. She always says no one would believe me because I'm just a child. This time we have proof, Augustus assured her, and many people willing to defend you. Dr. Rivers, your teacher Louisa, Mrs. Meadows, and me. Especially me. His cell phone vibrated with a message from Camilla. Critical situation. Judge demands Sophia's immediate presence to verify well-being. Detective Inspector with search warrant. Bring her to the courthouse now. We'll enter through the side entrance. Augustus took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived sooner than he expected. Sophia, we need to go to the courthouse now. The judge wants to see you. Fear returned to the girl's eyes. Are they going to take me back to her? No, he assured, with more confidence than he actually felt. But we need to follow the rules now, to ensure you never go back to that house. He helped Sophia get dressed in new clothes he had bought the night before, jeans, a t-shirt, a jacket, and sneakers, all simple but of infinitely superior quality to what she wore at Beatrice's house. The girl touched the clothes as if they were made of precious silk. I've never had new clothes like this, she commented, amazed. She always said it was a waste, that I ruined everything. Another revelation that broke Augustus's heart. From now on, you'll have everything you need, Sophia. Everything. The Jamestown Courthouse was an imposing building in the city center, As arranged, Camilla awaited them at the side entrance, accompanied by a court officer. "Mr. Miller," the lawyer greeted formally, her eyes showing relief at seeing Sophia seemingly well. "This is Ms. Simone, the officer assigned by Judge Eleanor Fisher to accompany Sophia." The officer, a middle-aged woman with a gentle expression, knelt to be at Sophia's height. "Hello, Sophia. Could you come with me? The judge wants to talk to you." Panic seized the girl's face. She clutched Augustus's hand. "I don't want to go alone." "Your father can accompany you to the room," the officer assured. "But the conversation with the judge will be private. It's standard procedure, so you can speak freely." Sophia looked at Augustus, seeking confirmation. He nodded encouragingly, though his own heart was heavy. "It's all right. Just tell the truth as it happened. I'll be waiting right here." As Sophia followed the officer, Camilla pulled Augustus into an empty meeting room. "Critical situation," she explained quickly. "Beatrice has mobilized considerable resources. She has a prominent lawyer from Richmond claiming you are an absent father who suddenly appeared to disrupt the child's stable life, and that the alleged kidnapping demonstrates emotional imbalance." "Emotional imbalance? I found my daughter with pneumonia, being forced to scrub a yard in the rain. And we can prove that," Camilla calmed him. "Dr. Rivers is here to testify. Louisa too, with all the school documentation. Mrs. Meadows brought the videos. Child Protective Services presented a compelling report." The door opened, and a man in a suit entered, the district attorney assigned to the case. "Mr. Miller, I'm Raphael Chase. I need your formal statement about last night's events." For the next hour, Augustus meticulously detailed everything: the state in which he found Sophia, the decision to take her, the medical diagnosis. The prosecutor wrote everything down with a grave expression. "Technically, you committed an illegality," he finally observed. "But given the extraordinary circumstances, I will recommend to the judge that she consider the action as an urgent protective measure, retroactively justifiable." Augustus's relief was short-lived. Soon after, 2 police officers entered the room. "Augustus Miller?" asked the older one, identifying himself as Detective Inspector Mason. "You are detained for violation of legal guardianship and unauthorized removal of a minor." "Is this really necessary?" The prosecutor intervened. "We are in the process of a special hearing. There is a police report filed and a warrant issued," the detective replied inflexibly. "I am following court orders, Doctor." Augustus did not resist when the handcuffs were placed. He looked at Camilla, worried. "What about Sophia?" "She's with the judge," she assured him. "She will not be handed over to Beatrice without a court decision. Stay calm and cooperate. This will help our case." As he was escorted, Augustus saw Beatrice in the corridor, accompanied by an arrogant-looking lawyer. She smiled with satisfaction at seeing him handcuffed, but the smile faltered when she noticed the prosecutor and the Child Protective Services team accompanying the case. At the police station, Augustus was treated with professional formality, neither hostility nor favoritism. They allowed him to make a call, and he contacted his corporate lawyer in Richmond, who promised to send a criminal specialist immediately. The hours in the simple cell were an exercise in patience and reflection. Augustus thought of Sophia, how scared she probably was, confused by the judicial procedures. He thought of Eliza, and how he had failed them both, his wife by not being present during her progressive illness, always busy with business, his daughter by abandoning her when she most needed stability and love. "How could I have been so blind?" he murmured to the grey walls. The financial empire he had built now seemed empty and meaningless. In the middle of the afternoon, the lawyer sent from Richmond arrived, bringing news. "The hearing is underway." Sophia testified for almost 2 hours, extremely detailed for a child her age. The medical report confirmed pneumonia, chronic malnutrition, and multiple bruises consistent with prolonged physical abuse. And Beatrice? She denies everything, of course. Claims the injuries are the result of normal childhood play, that the pneumonia was contracted at school, and that you suddenly appeared disrupting the stable routine, which caused emotional stress in the girl. Does anyone believe her? Apparently not, especially after teacher Louisa presented Sophia's diary and drawings made over the years, demonstrating a consistent pattern of fear and neglect. And Mrs. Meadows' videos are impactful. Augustus breathed a sigh of relief. And when will I be heard? We're working on it. Judge Eleanor is known for being meticulous but fair. She won't make a decision without hearing all parties. Late in the afternoon, Augustus was transferred to the courthouse, still in police custody. The courtroom was full. In addition to the judge, prosecutor, and lawyers, there were representatives from Child Protective Services, social workers, and several witnesses. Sophia was not present, likely removed to be spared the direct confrontation. Beatrice shot him a look of pure hatred when he entered. Beside her, her lawyer whispered instructions. Judge Eleanor Fisher, a woman in her 50s with a severe expression but compassionate eyes, addressed Augustus directly. Mr. Miller, I understand you acted out of concern for your daughter. However, there are established legal procedures precisely to protect children in vulnerable situations. By taking the law into your own hands, you potentially compromise due process. Augustus nodded, accepting the reprimand. That said, she continued, the evidence presented demonstrates extraordinary circumstances. Your daughter's testimony particularly was one of the most disturbing I have ever heard in my 15 years as a juvenile and family court judge. Beatrice's expression changed, realizing the situation was not in her favor. For the next 2 hours, Augustus testified under oath, detailing his version of events, the initial visit, the discovery of Sophia's living conditions, the collection of evidence, and finally, the decision to remove her after finding her sick, in the rain, being forced to work. Beatrice's lawyer tried to discredit him, emphasizing the 6 years of absence, the non-existent visits, the apparent lack of interest until recently. Augustus denied none of the accusations. Yes, I failed as a father, he admitted openly. After losing my wife, I immersed myself in work as a way to escape the pain. I left my daughter with someone I believed would care for her adequately, and I failed to check. It was the biggest mistake of my life, and I will spend the rest of it trying to compensate Sophia for it. When Dr. Rivers presented the medical report detailing the injuries and pneumonia, several people present gasped. The photographs of the bruises on Sophia's back, projected on the courtroom screen, silenced even Beatrice's lawyer momentarily. The child had a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, with early pneumonia, and yet was found by her father on an outdoor staircase, in the rain, being forced to perform household chores, the doctor concluded. In my professional opinion, this constitutes a life-threatening risk due to severe neglect. After the final witnesses and lawyers' arguments, the judge retired to deliberate. The 40-minute wait seemed endless. When she returned, the silence in the room was absolute. This case, she began, presents circumstances that deeply disturb the conscience of this court. On one hand, we have legal procedures that were ignored. On the other, a child in a situation of extreme vulnerability. She looked directly at Beatrice. Mrs. Albright, the evidence against you is overwhelming. This court determines the immediate and permanent revocation of your guardianship over Sophia Miller and orders a criminal investigation into your conduct. Beatrice paled, but maintained her rigid posture. Turning to Augustus, the judge continued, Mr. Miller, although I understand and even sympathize with your motivations, I cannot ignore that you violated legal procedures by removing the minor without judicial authorization. However, considering the extraordinary circumstances and the evident risk to the child's physical integrity, I classify your action as a state of necessity. She paused. I grant provisional custody of Sophia Miller to her father, Augustus Miller, for an initial period of 6 months, under regular supervision of Child Protective Services and conditioned on psychological counseling for the minor. I further determine that Mr. Miller establish a fixed residence in the jurisdiction during this period to facilitate monitoring of the case. Finally, she addressed the prosecutor. The criminal charges against Mr. Miller are dropped. He is to be released immediately. As for possible charges against Mrs. Albright, they are at the discretion of the district attorney's office, based on the evidence presented. The gavel striking sealed the decision. Augustus felt such intense relief that his legs almost gave way. Camilla smiled, patting his shoulder in silent congratulation. Beatrice stood up abruptly. This is absurd. I dedicated 6 years of my life to this child. He abandoned her. and now he appears as a hero. Mrs. Albright, the judge's voice was sharp, I suggest you leave in silence while you still have that option. When the handcuffs were finally removed, Augustus had only one question. Where is Sophia? In the psychosocial support room, Camilla informed, being attended by a court psychologist. We can see her now. Sophia was sitting on a colorful sofa, drawing on a pad of paper. When she saw Augustus, she dropped the pencil and ran to him, the first spontaneous gesture of affection since they reunited. Dad, I thought you left again. Augustus knelt, hugging her carefully so as not to hurt her. Never again, Sophia. Never again. The psychologist approached. Sophia was extremely brave today. Her testimony greatly helped the judge make the right decision. Are we going home now? The girl asked, still clinging to her father. The simplicity of the question caught Augustus off guard. Home, a concept they would need to rebuild together. Yes, dear. We're going home. As they left the courthouse, they found Beatrice being escorted by police officers to give a formal statement at the police station. She cast a venomous look in their direction, but Sophia for the first time did not shrink back in fear. Instead, she squeezed her father's hand more tightly and kept walking. A small gesture, immense meaning. The road to recovery would be long, but it had begun. And this time, Augustus would be present every step of the way. The first rays of sun entered through the windows of the colonial mansion Augustus had rented in Colonial Creek. By court order, they needed to remain in the jurisdiction for the 6-month evaluation period, and he had decided to turn this obligation into an opportunity, a time exclusively dedicated to rebuilding his bond with Sophia, away from the pressures of Richmond. 3 weeks had passed since the hearing. Beatrice was facing criminal charges for mistreatment and neglect, with several witnesses willing to recount other cases of children who had suffered in her house over the years. Apparently, Sophia had not been the first victim, only the one who had finally found a defender. Augustus watched his daughter sleeping serenely. Even after weeks of adequate nutrition and medical care, she still seemed fragile, smaller than other children her age. The pneumonia had completely regressed, but the emotional scars persisted. Frequent nightmares, startling at the slightest noise, the habit of hiding food under her pillow, fearing she wouldn't have enough later. Tenderly, he brushed a lock of hair from the girl's face. Sophia slowly opened her eyes, without the startled awakening of before, a small progress that filled Augustus with hope. Good morning, he smiled. Good morning. Dad. The word still sounded new on her lips, as if testing its reality each time she pronounced it. Did you sleep well? Sophia nodded, stretching unhurriedly, another newly acquired habit. In Beatrice's house, getting up late meant punishment. Today is your first day at the new school, he gently reminded her. Excited? A flicker of anxiety crossed Sophia's face. What if the other kids ask about before? You only tell what you feel comfortable telling, Augustus replied. Your story belongs to you. Augustus had enrolled Sophia in a small private school in Jamestown with a psychopedagogical support program. The principal, informed of the situation, had guaranteed special attention during the adaptation process. While Sophia prepared for breakfast, Augustus checked his phone messages. His assistant in Richmond had sent updates on the companies he now managed remotely, delegating far more than he had ever imagined possible. Surprisingly, the businesses continued to thrive even without his constant presence. The lesson was clear. The empire for which he had sacrificed his family did not need him as much as his daughter did. Camilla had also written, informing him that the next Child Protective Services evaluation was scheduled for the following week. The first visits had been positive, with the officers noting Sophia's progress in such a short time. In the sunny kitchen, Sophia was already helping Mrs. Conception, the woman Augustus had hired to take care of the house. Unlike the past, tasks were now appropriate for her age, setting the table, mixing cake batter, choosing fruits always as learning, never as an obligation. I made your favorite juice, dear, Mrs. Conception smiled, placing a glass of orange and strawberry juice in front of Sophia. The elderly woman, grandmother of 5, treated the girl with the natural affection of someone who understood the value of childhood. Thank you, Sophia replied, still economizing words, but already showing affection through small gestures. A smile, a gifted drawing, a flower picked from the garden. After breakfast, Augustus took Sophia to her first day at the new school. In the car, she held her new backpack tightly, as if fearing someone might take it. "Remember our agreement?" he asked, parking in front of the school. "If you feel any discomfort, call me. I'll come pick you up immediately." Sophia nodded, still apprehensive. "You promise you'll be here at dismissal time?" "I'll be waiting right here," he assured her. "And you can just call me Dad, remember?" "No, sir." A shy smile lit up the girl's face. "Okay, Dad." Augustus watched her walk to the gate where the guidance counselor was already waiting for her. His heart tightened as he saw her so small in her new uniform, facing another challenge. He stayed in the car until she was out of sight, fighting the urge to accompany her to the classroom. Back at the mansion, he found Dr. Mariana, the psychologist who saw Sophia 3 times a week. Augustus also attended therapy at different times, part of the reconstruction process they both faced. "How is she today?" the professional asked, preparing materials for the session they would have when Sophia returned from school. "Anxious about the first day, but determined," he replied, pouring coffee for both of them. "Yesterday she had another nightmare. Woke up screaming that she was locking her in the attic." Mariana nodded, making a note. "Traumas don't disappear overnight. The important thing is that she now has the security to process them." "And how long until she fully heals?" The psychologist smiled gently. "There is no fully when we talk about deep traumas, Augustus. There are scars that become part of who we are. The goal is not to erase them, but to learn to live with them in a healthy way." The conversation was interrupted by Camilla's arrival. The lawyer had become a constant presence, not only for the legal aspects of the case, but for her genuine concern for Sophia. "I bring news," she announced, accepting the offered coffee. "The judge has ordered Beatrice's assets to be frozen until the conclusion of the criminal process. There is evidence that she diverted part of the money you sent monthly for Sophia." Augustus shook his head, disgusted but not surprised. "The money is the least important thing. I want justice." "And it will come," Camilla assured him. "The case has gained repercussion. Other families are coming forward, reporting similar situations. Apparently, Beatrice built a reputation as a responsible guardian for children from struggling families, but her real interest was in the financial benefits." "How did I not notice this?" Augustus lamented. "How did so many not notice?" "Emotional predators are experts at creating facades," Mariana interjected. "They can deceive entire communities with their apparent respectability." Augustus's phone rang. It was the school. His heart immediately pounded. "Hello? Mr. Miller. This is Patricia, the guidance counselor. Don't worry, Sophia is physically fine, but we had a situation that requires your presence." "I'm coming," he replied, already grabbing his car keys. At the school, he found Sophia sitting in the counselor's office, her eyes red from crying, but her posture surprisingly determined. "What happened?" he asked, kneeling to be at his daughter's height. "There was a misunderstanding during recess," the counselor explained. "A boy asked why Sophia was so small for her age. When she didn't answer, he insisted, saying she looked like a preschooler. Sophia reacted." "How did you react?" Augustus asked his daughter. "I hit him," Sophia admitted, looking at her father with a mixture of defiance and fear. "He kept provoking me, saying I was weak and scared. Then he said kids without mothers are always problematic." Her voice faltered on the last part. Augustus took a deep breath, controlling his own anger. "I understand. Normally we would have a suspension for physical aggression," the counselor continued, "but given the extraordinary circumstances and it being Sophia's first day, we preferred to talk to everyone involved. The boy was instructed about sensitivity and respect, and his parents were notified." "Are you mad at me?" Sophia asked, her insecurity showing. "No, daughter," Augustus replied honestly. "I don't condone violence, but I understand why you reacted that way. You felt attacked and defended yourself as you learned to do. Beatrice said I was weak," Sophia murmured, "that I would never be able to defend myself." "She was wrong," Augustus affirmed. "You are the strongest person I know." On the way home, they decided to stop at an ice cream parlor. While Sophia chose flavors, still amazed by the possibility of choice, Augustus received a message from Dr. Mariana. suggesting he use the incident as a therapeutic opportunity. "You know," he began, when they were seated with their ice creams, "there are many forms of strength. Hitting someone when we feel threatened is a natural reaction, but not always the best." Sophia licked her spoon, thoughtful. "How did you react when you were provoked?" The question caught Augustus off guard. He rarely talked about his own childhood, son of divorced parents, raised between expensive boarding schools and emotional absence. Perhaps it was time to share more of himself, so Sophia would understand she wasn't alone in her struggles. "When I was a child, I also reacted with anger," he admitted, "until a teacher taught me to channel that energy into other things, sports, studies, goals. But you know what I discovered over time? That true strength lies in knowing when to fight and when to ask for help. Isn't asking for help a weakness? It's the opposite. Recognizing that we need others is one of the bravest forms of strength." Sophia considered the answer with the seriousness of someone processing deep concepts. "So I tried to ask for help before. No one believed me." "I know, dear, and that's unforgivable. But now there are people who believe in you. Me, Dr. Mariana, Camilla, your new teacher. You'll never be alone again." That night after dinner, while Sophia was bathing, Augustus received an unexpected call from Theodore, his majority partner in Richmond. "I need you here, Augustus. The merger with the Chinese is at risk. They demand your presence at tomorrow's meeting." "Impossible," he replied without hesitation. "I am under a court order to remain in the jurisdiction. Besides, Sophia needs me here. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar deal. Use your influence, get an exception." 6 months earlier, Augustus would have gotten on the jet without a second thought, prioritizing the corporate empire above all else. Now the answer came naturally. "Theodore, if the Chinese truly value our partnership, they will understand and reschedule. If they don't understand, well, there are other investors. What doesn't exist is another Sophia." After hanging up, he felt a peace that money had never provided. His priorities were finally in the right place. Weeks turned into months. The Colonial House gradually became a true home. Sophia brought friends from school, few chosen with the caution of someone who learned early about trust, but genuine. Her room, once Spartan, now displayed astronomy posters, her new passion, books on the shelves, and plants she cultivated herself. In sessions with Dr. Mariana, progress was constant. Sophia spoke more openly about her years with Beatrice, processing the traumas with the extraordinary resilience of children. There were still occasional setbacks, panic attacks, food hoarding behaviors, difficulty accepting gifts, but the trend was of continuous improvement. The legal process against Beatrice was advancing. Other children who had been under her guardianship were located, some already adults, all with similar stories of forced labor and neglect. The case had gained national repercussion, exposing flaws in guardianship, monitoring systems, and generating debates about parental responsibility. As the 6-month evaluation approached its end, Augustus faced an important decision. The restriction to remain in the jurisdiction would soon expire. Should they return to Richmond, resuming their interrupted life, or definitively start over in a new place? On a Sunday afternoon, while planting flowers in the garden, an activity Sophia had discovered she loved, Augustus brought up the subject. "In a few weeks, we can choose where to go," he began casually. "What do you think about seeing our house in Richmond? It's big, has a pool near a park." Sophia continued digging small holes for the daisy seedlings, thoughtful. "Can we stay here?" The question surprised Augustus. "Here in Colonial Creek. You'd like that?" The girl nodded. "I like my school, Dr. Mariana, and here—" She paused, searching for words. "Here is where you truly found me." The profound simplicity of the observation moved Augustus. Indeed, Colonial Creek, the small colonial town where he had started as a villain, the absent, negligent father, had transformed into the setting of his redemption. "Yes, we can stay," he agreed, helping her plant a seedling. "In fact, I've been looking at some properties for purchase nearby. There's a farm with lots of space, fruit trees, even a creek." "What do you think?" Sophia's eyes sparkled. "Can we have animals?" "I always wanted a dog. Beatrice said animals were dirty and a lot of work." "We can have as many animals as you want," Augustus assured her. "Dogs, cats, rabbits, chickens. And can we invite Julia's mom to give painting lessons there? She said her farm has a studio and that I have talent. Of course we can. And can Dr. Mariana continue to be my psychologist? Even if she lives further away? We'll arrange that too. Sophia smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, increasingly frequent in recent months. I think it will be nice. A place all our own without bad memories. That night, after Sophia fell asleep, Augustus sat on the porch with a glass of wine, contemplating the stars twinkling over the Virginia Highlands Mountains. He thought about how his life had completely transformed in such a short time. The man obsessed with corporate success, who measured value in acquisitions and mergers, now found meaning in small daily victories. Sophia eating without checking if she had permission, Sophia laughing without covering her mouth for fear of reprimand, Sophia dreaming of the future instead of fearing the present. His cell phone rang. It was Mrs. Meadows, the neighbor who had helped expose Beatrice's abuses. Mr. Miller, I'm sorry to call so late, but I thought you'd want to know. Beatrice was preventively arrested today. Apparently she was planning to leave the country. Thank you for letting me know, Mrs. Meadows, and for everything you did for Sophia. Justice may be slow, but it is not blind, the elderly woman replied wisely. How is our girl doing? Better every day. We're planning to stay in Colonial Creek permanently. Wonderful news. This town needs stories of redemption like yours. After hanging up, Augustus reflected on the concept of redemption. He had failed gravely as a father, a failure no judge needed to point out, as his own conscience condemned him daily. The abandonment of Sophia in the most vulnerable moments of her life was an unpayable debt. However, through the struggle to protect her, he had found the path not only to redemption, but to a complete transformation. Success now had another definition. It was not measured in contracts or acquisitions, but in the gradual sparkle returning to his daughter's eyes. The next morning, as they prepared breakfast together, another newly established ritual, Sophia surprised him with a question. Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of me? The spontaneous mention of Eliza was rare. In sessions with Dr. Mariana, Sophia had also begun to process the loss of her mother, a traumatic event that preceded the years of abuse. I'm absolutely sure, Augustus replied, moved. Your mom always said you had the bravest heart she had ever known, and she was right. Sophia considered the answer, stirring her cereal. Sometimes I dream about her. In the dream, she's waiting for us in the new house, the farm one. Is that possible? Augustus remembered his conversations with Dr. Mariana about spirituality as a therapeutic resource, how finding comfort in transcendent connections helped children cope with losses. Think your mom will always be with us? In some way, he replied carefully. In the values she taught us, in the memories, and maybe yes, in dreams that bring us peace. Sophia nodded, apparently satisfied with the answer. She finished breakfast and picked up her backpack for school, a ritual now performed naturally, without the fear of the first few days. See you later, Dad. Today we have science class. We're dissecting a flower. See you later, dear. I'll be waiting in the same place as always. Watching her walk to Mrs. Conception's car, which would take her to school that day, while he finalized the farm purchase, Augustus felt a growing certainty. True fortune had never been in the businesses he built, in bank accounts or properties. It had always been there, in the small person now waving from the car window, smiling with a newfound freedom. Sophia, whose name meant wisdom, had taught him the greatest lesson of all, that love, when authentic, has redemptive power, that it's never too late to rebuild broken bonds. That true wealth lies in the eyes of a child who finally is no longer afraid to dream. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope Augustus and Sophia's journey has touched your hearts. This story of redemption and love reminds us that it's never too late to correct our mistakes and fight for those we love. If you were moved by this narrative, be sure to subscribe to our channel, where we daily share stories that explore the complexity of human relationships. Leave a like and tell us in the comments, what moment of this story touched your heart the most? We have prepared a special playlist with equally emotional stories about new beginnings and second chances. Click on the link to your left to continue this emotional journey. Your presence here is what motivates us to continue telling stories that inspire and transform.